We've got the ultimate philosophical showdown here, Plato versus Diogenes. And honestly, this meme captures one of the most entertaining philosophical beefs in history. These two couldn't be more different if they tried.
Living situations. So, Plato lived in luxury while Diogenes lived in a tub in the marketplace. And this tells you everything you need to know about their approaches to philosophy. Plato came from money. He could afford to sit around thinking about perfect abstract forms because he didn't have to worry about where his next meal was coming from. Meanwhile, Diogenes literally lived in a barrel, some translations say a large ceramic jar, right in the middle of Athens' busiest area. But here's the thing, Diogenes chose to live like that. Dude could have had a normal house, but he decided that owning stuff was for chumps. While Plato was building his fancy academy with gardens and lecture halls, Diogenes was proving that you could do philosophy with literally nothing but your own body and a really bad attitude. The contrast is wild. Plato needs his perfect environment to contemplate perfect ideas. Diogenes needs nothing but a place to sleep and people to annoy. Teaching styles. Would teach classes to monarchs versus never held a class yet taught everyone his philosophy. Plato was all about formal education. He created the academy, which was basically the first university. Kings and rich people would send their sons to learn from him, very exclusive, very prestigious, very elitist. Diogenes, on the other hand, turned the entire city of Athens into his classroom. He'd just walk around being weird and confrontational, and boom, philosophy lesson. No tuition required. When Alexander the Great, literally the most powerful person in the world, came to visit him, Diogenes told him to move because he was blocking the sun. That's a masterclass in not giving a damn about social hierarchies. Plato's students had to come to him, pay fees, and follow a curriculum. Diogenes' students were just random people who happened to witness him doing something outrageous in public. Much more democratic approach, honestly. Self-perception. The so self-centered he named his school after himself versus Diogenes bringing a plucked chicken to Plato's lecture is probably my favorite part of this whole thing. Plato's academy was literally named after himself. I mean, fair enough, he built it, he funded it, why not? But there's definitely something a bit precious about it. Welcome to Plato's Academy, where we discuss Plato's theory of forms as outlined in Plato's Republic. Very on brand for someone who thought most people were too dumb to understand reality. Meanwhile, Diogenes heard that Plato defined humans as featherless bipeds and showed up to his lecture with a plucked chicken yelling, "Behold, a man!" Just pure chaos. Imagine spending years developing a sophisticated definition of human nature and some homeless guy completely destroys it with poultry. That's peak Diogenes energy right there. The chicken incident perfectly captures their different approaches. Plato wants elegant, abstract definitions. Diogenes wants to expose how ridiculous those definitions are when you actually apply them to reality. Social engagement. Was civilized, never even dared to protest society, compared to gave no shits about being civil, pissed on passersby to protest society. Plato worked within the system. He was critical of democracy and had ideas about ideal societies, but he expressed these through dialogue and theory. Very respectable, very academic. Diogenes literally urinated on people. He masturbated in public. When people got offended, he'd say something like, "If only I could relieve hunger by rubbing my stomach." The man used his entire life as performance art to show how arbitrary social conventions are. Where Plato wrote the Republic, this detailed blueprint for an ideal society, Diogenes just lived according to his own rules and let everyone else figure it out. Plato's approach? Write 300 pages about justice. Diogenes' approach? Live so authentically that you make everyone else question their life choices. Philosophical methods. Theory of forms relies on something being perfect and unchangeable, while Diogenes is out here with, "Strike me, for you will find no wood hard enough to keep me away from you so long as I think you've got something to say." Plato's whole thing was that real reality exists in some perfect realm of forms. Everything we see is just a crappy copy of perfect ideas. Very neat, very systematic, very removed from actual human experience. Diogenes was the complete opposite. His philosophy was embodied, immediate, confrontational. That quote about striking him shows his commitment to real human interaction over abstract theory. He's basically saying, hit me if you want, but I'm going to keep challenging you as long as you're saying interesting things. While Plato escapes to the world of perfect ideas, Diogenes dives headfirst into the messiness of actual existence. Plato wants eternal truths. Diogenes wants authentic moments. Relationship with authority. The Alexander the Great story deserves its own section. When the most powerful man in the world comes to meet you, normal people bow or try to get something out of it. Diogenes asks him to move because he's blocking the sun. Alexander apparently said, "If I were not Alexander, I would want to be Diogenes." Diogenes reportedly replied, "If I were not Diogenes, I would also want to be Diogenes." Absolute mad lad energy. Compare this to Plato, who would probably have used a meeting with Alexander as an opportunity to discuss ideal governance and the philosopher-king concept. Very diplomatic, very strategic. Diogenes treating the most powerful person alive like a minor inconvenience is the ultimate power move. He genuinely didn't care about wealth, status, or political connections. That kind of freedom is terrifying to most people, but Diogenes lived it completely. Legacy and recognition. No one knows much about him beyond the fact that he was a famous philosopher, versus everyone knows who he is and what he taught. This is kind of ironic because Plato is obviously more famous academically, but the meme has a point. Most people know Plato wrote important stuff, but they couldn't tell you much about his actual ideas beyond maybe the cave allegory. Diogenes, though, everyone remembers the stories. The barrel, the lamp, the chicken, telling Alexander to move. His philosophy was so tied to his lifestyle that you can't separate the ideas from the person. When you think of cynicism, you think of some crazy dude living in the street and roasting everyone who walks by. That's effective branding. The real difference. Here's what this meme really gets at. There are basically two ways to do philosophy. You can build systems and institutions and try to change the world through ideas, like Plato, or you can just live so radically that you become a walking philosophical argument, like Diogenes. Plato wanted perfect societies through perfect ideas. Diogenes wanted to show that you could be free right now, today, if you're willing to pay the price. And sometimes, when you're stuck in traffic, or dealing with bureaucracy, or pretending to care about things that don't matter, that example hits different. Modern applications. The Virgin versus Chad format works so well here because it captures something we still struggle with today. Are you going to be the person who plays by the rules, builds institutions, tries to change things from within, or are you going to be the person who just opts out completely and lives according to your own values? Social media has created a bunch of modern Diogenes types, people who use their platforms to call out hypocrisy and live authentically, consequences be damned. But we've also got plenty of Plato types building systems and trying to create better frameworks for society. Maybe the real lesson here is that philosophy needs both types. Someone has to build the institutions, and someone has to keep those institutions honest by being completely unimpressed with them. The verdict. Both approaches to life and philosophy have their place. But if we're being honest about which one makes for better stories, Diogenes wins every time. The Chad energy speaks for itself.